Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of Feedback Friday. Today I have some awesome news for you all in regards to the update that just launched yesterday. We saw quite a large number of new features with this update, as well as a ton of bug fixes and balance changes. But first of all, we have all been wondering what would become of Proxy now that she has been revealed as the culprit. Well, if you don't know, there is a small comic series for the Rogue on Vogue event lore, which I will leave a link to down in the description if you haven't seen it yet. And if you haven't, then I recommend pausing the video right now and going to read it because I will be mentioning some huge spoilers. So in the final chapter, we see Proxy, who has been cornered by Amy, and is revealed that Proxy was actually hired by Max Bashki to kill Amy. But as we learned, it was Max who took the bullet instead. Amy was supposed to be holding the candle Max tossed at her, which was basically meant to be an indicator for Proxy on who to shoot, since the room was dimly lit. However, Amy tossed the candle back at Max, and we can see the look of horror on his face as he realized he was about to be killed by mistake. Well, in consequence for killing Mr. Bashki, Amy has basically melted Proxy's eye out of her skull with the snitch device, and in return she will now be wearing a bandage over the affected eye on all new and old loadouts. However, perhaps fortunately, the Founders loadout cards are still unaffected. Anyways, with that said, we are now greeted with the opportunity to open our Culprit and Obsidian cases for the new Gen 2 loadout variants, and I've gotta say man, these cards look absolutely amazing. As you can see, the Culprit skin features an orange and black color scheme, while the Obsidian variant shows Proxy covered in blood, sporting a red, orange, and black color scheme, as well as a branding mark on her neck. Pretty gruesome, I must say, but I'll be damned if it doesn't look top-notch. I'm really happy with the way these turned out, but just imagine if Stoker had these cards. I gotta move past it, man. Alright, let's move on. Still on the topic of cases and loadouts, you will receive a special edition Detective Amy card, limited to anybody who logs in between May 19th and May 23rd. So hop on right now if you haven't already, and be sure to take part in Case a Day May, which is now active until the end of the month. Basically how this works is you will receive a free combined expert case just for logging in and playing a match every day, so that's at the very least 12 guaranteed bronze cards or better, so be sure to take advantage of this while you still can. Also, I'm sure that players will be more than happy to hear that leveling up will now reward you with much more than just a simple equipment case. Now introducing Arsenal Crates, these bad boys drop every single time you level up starting from level 7 and contain one of the following items, which I will display on screen with their drop percentages. I think we can all agree that this is a much deserved change from the guaranteed lead cards we were so used to getting, but I want to know what you guys think about these new Arsenal Crates, so let me know your thoughts down below. But wait, there's more! You thought I was done with you in regards to loadouts, didn't you? But oh no. Introducing Loadout Card Favoriting. Now you can favorite your favorite loadout cards, which will bring them to the top list in the barracks and when equipping cards to make loadout switching much easier, as well as preventing them from being traded up accidentally during a drunk stream. Drunk stream? ? And we finally have the second edition of loadout cards, obviously one of the biggest controversial topics on the Dirty Bomb subreddit recently. There was a lot of discussion going on revolving around the exclusive sneak peeks that some community members were given access to review, and some of the speculation was unfortunately negative given the select few cards that we were given to review. Well, I'm more than happy to say that now all of the cards have been revealed for you to ponder upon and test for yourself, and if you haven't been paying attention to all of this hype, I'll try to quickly summarize the second gen loadouts for you. Basically, Splash Damage took all of the old undesirable loadouts and did their best to rework them with slightly or completely different augment selections in an attempt to balance them all out across the board. Now, obviously, there will still be preferred loadouts, but the idea with this update was to lessen the disappointment you might feel and even encourage you to try something new if you didn't get the exact card you were hoping for. Some of the more desirable loadouts, such as the 383 for Sparks and the A31 for Fletcher as an example, have remained completely unchanged, so I'm sure players will still be happy to hear that as well. Finally, moving away from loadouts and cases, we have a couple more things to talk about, so let's start with the new Assault course and the revamped tutorial level. There were many complaints about the previous iteration of the tutorial, which did not teach new players enough about the basic game mechanics to consider it being a job well done. I'd say give the new tutorial a shot because it still is a really cool experience, and you'll then be able to take part in the Assault course, which is basically what it sounds like. You have to run through a pre-made level, killing enemies and supporting your teammates as quick as possible. You will be rewarded for accuracy and time, while also being penalized for aiming down your sights and crouching. This is a method of communicating to new players that, hey guys, this isn't Call of Duty or Counter-Strike and you should be moving fast while aiming from the hip. And I think they did a pretty good job with it too. It teaches you that there is wall jumping and long jumping, and it is even required to do those things if you want to place with a good score in the end. All in all, a very cool addition to the game, and unfortunately it is tailored only for Skyhammer at this time, but it was hinted at that we may be able to test out other mercs and our loadouts for them in the future. Last up for the small updates, we now have access to 2 new credit boosters, costing only 79 cents and $1.49 USD. Their active times scale in accordance to these prices at 1 hour and 3 hours each, but even still, I think it's nice to be able to pop one of these on if you've got a few cents kicking around in your Steam wallet. But now it's the time that I know you've all been waiting for. There have been a ton of balance changes to some of our favorite mercs, as well as a massive list of bug fixes, one of the biggest I've seen. So let's get started with the balance changes first of all. And where else to start than with the biggest of these changes, Phantom and Thunder. Thunder's health has been increased by 10 HP, which may not seem like very much, but it definitely helps define his role as a tank when compared to Fragger, who has actually now lost 10 HP. I don't think this change to Fragger is that big of a nerf or will affect him that negatively in a substantial way, and like I said, helps differentiate the assault and tank roles between these two big mercs. Thunder's concussion grenades also see a substantial buff to their effectiveness, having a harsher curve in regards to the concussion grenade effect itself at medium ranges, instead of having a linear fall off. Players who are flashed will now correctly cover their faces to help communicate that they are indeed blind, and those blinded players will now have their HUDs effectively hidden. This may not seem like much, but it's definitely a big change since it was still fairly easy to track enemies previously while blinded by just following their health bars with your crosshair. Concussion grenades now significantly reduce your movement speed and jump height while you're concussed, and have had their fuse times shortened. Perhaps the most controversial subject in regards to these balance changes was the decision to remove the EMP effect from Thunder's concussion grenades and add it to Phantom's cloak. Now, I'm not completely against this idea since it does give Phantom a little bit more of a team-based element to his playstyle, but I wish they would have added the option to choose whether or not you wanted to activate the EMP effect along with your cloak. Anyways, the new EMP cloak for Phantom will now disable enemy equipment within a 10 meter radius around him, and all affected enemy equipment will remain disabled for 5 seconds after leaving the EMP field. As an added bonus, Phantom's cloak will now last 10% longer, however there is a little bit more to this, so I'll get back to that in a minute. For now, we see Fletcher receiving a much needed nerf to his sticky bombs, reducing the radial damage from them to 85. But to compensate for this, they have increased the size of the area of effect. A direct stick will remain at 100 damage, so you will still have to land those direct sticks to get the full effect out of your sticky bombs. I would have loved to see a small increase to their cooldown time, but we'll see how this update affects them first. And last up for merc changes, Bushwhacker's turret will now deploy faster, Proxy's mines will now take less time to throw, and Sparks and Sawbones will now throw out their med packs faster as well. Now remember how I said Phantom's Cloak received a plus 10 increase to its duration time? While the Undercover augment has consequently dropped down to only 10% extra effectiveness from its previous 20%. This should hopefully be a good compensation, since Undercover won't be absolutely needed in order to play effectively as Phantom, but it will still be very nice to have. Unshakable has been nerfed down to 15% from its previous 20%, and Quick Charge was also nerfed down to 10% from 15%. Unfortunately, Quick Slash was also nerfed down to 15% from its previous 25% bonus, and this might come as a heartbreak for some people, especially for those of you who love to melee, but we'll have to see just how much this nerf will actually affect our play. Finally, for some good news, Tough has basically become a god tier augment, reducing the delay until health regen starts by 66%, up from its previous 33%. This is a huge buff and should definitely be taken advantage of if you have any loadouts with this augment. This won't negate the need for a team medic, but definitely does come very much in handy for those times in between firefights when you need to recover a bit of health before your next engagement. And finally, we have some bug fixes. There are a lot of things that I won't touch on in this video for the sake of time restraints, since this video has gone on for quite a long time already, so be sure to check out the full patch notes in the link that I will provide in the description below. But as for some of the more notable bug fixes, Molotovs have had some of their biggest problems with the flame physics fixed. Players can no longer block Phoenix's healing pulse. That's a big one, I've been waiting for that for a while. Abilities from recently dead attackers no longer damage their team's EV. The execution badges will now correctly display in the profile tab. The spotter augment will now correctly increase the snitch's detection radius. And Skyhammer will now have eyes on low graphical settings. So that's it for today's video. I hope you guys learned something new or just found it entertaining, and I'll see you all in the next video. But until then, as always, take care everyone.